All right. Well, welcome everyone to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thank you for taking the time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community mentorship and learning. I'm your host, Dave Albright, joined by the ever-present Dave Nava. We're both solutions engineers at Salesforce and Military Trailblazers. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-host to take part in the conversation so that we can leverage their experience, expertise, and unique perspectives. The focus for tonight's session is something near and dear to our heart: content creation, the art of impactful demos. Maybe I'll learn something from that last 90-minute demo. Maybe that's why I was on there so long. So if you've ever been interested in solutioning demos, this is a session for you. I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight's session: Iman Maghroori, Jarrod Kingston, and LeeAnne Rimel. Iman is the Director of Demo Automation at Salesforce. With over 17 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, Iman's journey is remarkable. He was one of the first demo engineers at Salesforce, and he has since won numerous awards, led large-scale webinars, and managed one of Salesforce's largest demo environments, excelling in his passion for creating impactful product and demonstrations that connect deeply with clients and partners. Jarrod is a senior solutions sales leader and enterprise account executive at Studio Science. With more than 15 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, Jarrod is both a Salesforce MVP and an accomplished professional holding an impressive 19 Salesforce certifications. His expertise spans across solution sales, enterprise-level client management, and strategic leadership in helping organizations realize transformative value through Salesforce. Finally, LeeAnne serves as the Senior Director for Admin and Developer Strategic Content at Salesforce. A repeat keynote speaker at Salesforce events, LeeAnne is a well-respected leader in admin and developer and evangelism. Her mission is clear: to educate, enable, and inspire the Salesforce admin community, anyone building on the platform, helping them unlock the full potential of the tools at their fingertips. It's quite a lineup right there and quite a bit of experience. So it'd be great if each of you could take a moment to introduce yourselves further and share your Salesforce stories. Iman, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. Thanks for having me, everybody. So hi, my name is Iman. I joined Salesforce in 2007, and I was one of the first demo engineers at the company. We were trying to figure out what demo engineering was. We didn't call it that back then. And it was just hands-on, following SEs around and understanding what the customer wanted and building the demo. And I did that for a while, and they were like, hey, why don't you just go talk to the customers, build the demo? So then I became an SE and worked my way through the segments from small business through general business, and had a good time. Finally, there were no more SE mountains to conquer, so I went and became an account executive. I did well, but I hated the job, and I went back to the SE world and did not want to do the frontline grind anymore. And so they let me figure out what I did, and I did webinars. So I did demos at scale, which then turned into demo videos for customers to watch at scale, which then became, how do I manage demo environments for our entire sales team and our partners and our prospects to use to sell at scale. So now I've kind of pivoted from one-off individual deal work to scale work. That's me.
Wow. I am not worthy to be here. Dave, you're up. I'm out. LeeAnne, you want to go next?
Sure. So I have been at Salesforce for about 15 years. I just celebrated my 15 years, and I actually was a admin and developer before I joined Salesforce. So I joined as a customer from Kaiser. And I've had quite a long Salesforce journey. I actually started in dev support at Salesforce, which has a lot of different flavors of demos. Often it's more technical explanations, really trying to walk people through solutions to problems. And then I spent a number of years as a solution architect. I was actually the first sales engineer in Chicago when we opened our Chicago office there. So I did a huge amount of demos, but also a lot of training. So I helped build the sales engineering team there, and a lot of training of the AEs there of how to do sales demos, which was really a lot of fun. I loved Chicago. It was great to be there. And then the last, I think 12 years or so, I've been in developer and admin relations. So I moved over as a developer evangelist, spent some time in admin evangelism, helping build that team. I'm responsible for a lot of keynote demos, a lot of TDX mean keynote demos, a lot of the virtual event keynote demos, the majority of the admin keynote demos that have happened. And then now I have, Iman said his scale role. I think now I'm kind of in that more scale role as well. I oversee all TDX strategic content, and then all of the admin developer strategic content for Dreamforce and for World Tours. So I get to now spend a little less time making demos and a lot more time looking after how are we bringing, a lot of demos across a lot of products to our communities and to our audiences. So really excited to be here. I love this office hours. My brother is currently serving in the Army Reserves in Washington as a chemical ops sergeant. So always love when I get to connect with this community.
Yeah, thank you. That also is an impressive one. So Jarrod, just bring us home. Just tell us all.
Yeah. All right. No, that's hard to follow. You guys have impressive careers. So so Jarrod Kingston, I'm based out of Kansas City. I started on the Salesforce platform in 2009 as an admin, and have kind of worked my way up through as a consultant. And then, probably before this role, I guess 8 or so years, I was in solution architecture and solution engineering on the consulting side, charged with how do we, from a services perspective, bring what our solution could be to life via a demonstration and then tell that story to a customer. And so back in March, I came over from IBM, where I was leading a solution engineering team, and we covered all of these different markets and helping them tell different stories and building demos that could tell, the vision of certain solutions across various markets, including even, some fun ones for, federal clients within, Army and others. So there's a lot of, some fun connections there. But and then now I'm here at Studio Science, where I'm in more of a forward-facing selling role, if you will, still telling that story, but now selling the services that we provide for our customers. But, demos, very near and dear to my heart. And I truly believe, like, if you're going to sell services and a solution in general, right, seeing is believing, and being able to tell the story is so huge. So yeah, really excited to be a part of this. Since LeeAnne mentioned like her connection, I love this office hours. I'm glad to be a part of it for the first time. I grew up with my grandpa served in the military, as well as my uncle, and just grew up. My grandpa grew up taking me to Fort Leavenworth, which is pretty close to us here a lot of times. So yeah, very excited to be a part of this.
I've been out to Leavenworth, and not to the prison either. Every time you say someone goes, "Oh, I'm in Leavenworth," you're like, "What'd you do?" And you're like, "Oh,
that's right.
Let's move along." So we're going to get into some of this, especially the demo stuff, because obviously near and dear to Dave and my heart, right? And the differences in a demo, right? Between that post-sales, let me show you what we built in a sprint, versus let me show you the art of the possible, or the storyline that goes with it and how they play out and who does them. So for those joining for the first time, we always like to briefly explain the purpose of these office hours. These sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers and allies to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branded related topics to help you achieve your professional development and career-related goals. The next hour is intended to be an opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and help answer questions from your perspective, which will provide additional diversity of experience to the answers given. Please keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session, and I and others on this call share a lot of great information there, including learning, networking, and employment opportunities. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. If you don't feel as comfortable speaking up, you can also post your questions in chat. We'll do our best to monitor the chat window and also be looking for raised hands. And finally, tonight's session is being recorded. If you'd like to share an attribution-free comment, please let us know before speaking. We'll make sure it's edited out of the final recording. So that comment about demos, right? And the difference between that delivery kind of demo and that pre-sales. What core skills, because this is interesting to see how it plays out, because I came from implementation a little bit before I went into solution engineering. And it's like, you wanted this requirement, here it is. And you kind of do that. And that's a slightly different skill set, to say the least. So what core skills do you believe are essential for someone specializing in demo creation within the Salesforce ecosystem? Because I'm curious to hear about this one. Who wants to start?
I'll jump in. I think something, because I've done demos for a lot of different types of audiences, like demos for technical understanding, demos for an RFP, for a pre-sale cycle, demos to inspire. Like there's a lot of different demos to get a job, right? Like there's a lot of different shapes of like, why are we demoing and what's the goal of the demo? And I think really tapping into that why, that empathy for your audience, like who are you demoing to and what do they need from you? Like, is it a hiring manager who needs to feel confident that you can solve a specific type of problem? Is it an RFP demo, but like what didn't they put in the RFP that like you need to suss out, sort of like what's not there, what's the why behind the why of that RFP? So I think really exercising that, I mean, of course, there's all the secondary skills like product acumen, speaking skills, communication style. But I think that first layer of empathy for what does that person need to see? And then everything else kind of flows from that in my mind.
Yeah, that's really well put. Iman?
I agree. That was really well. I mean, I don't, not to like wax poetic on it, but like a
And we're
demo,
out.
different style demos for different things. You know, I'm going to do a different demo. If I'm trying to, is there a competitor? Is there not a competitor? Do you already like us? Are you against us? I'm going to have a completely different approach to what I present, you know? But ultimately, if I had to just answer your question directly, I would say you got to have the product skills because you got to know the best way to present it. Right.
Yep.
And you got to have some idea of what the customer's needs are out of that meeting. So you actually accomplish the task in that moment in time. And then you got to be likable. It doesn't matter what you have to say. It doesn't matter what your value prop is. If people get in there and they just don't like you and they get kind of put off by that meeting, you hurt your own sales cycle a little bit. So it's like, how do I make this information palatable so that they want to listen to me while I show the coolest version of the thing I can for them?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think when I first came into the solution engineering role, and I've been doing it for 3 years, which is not nearly as long as you all have, I kind of thought like, hey, in the pre-sale side, it is this set piece in chess that if I show this demo, they're going to be so wowed, they're just going to throw their credit cards at the screen. And the reality is it's not. It really is just a tool to kind of reduce the fear and uncertainty that we can solve their use case with the product, and we continue the conversation. And like you said, just like all of you have bought things from like a car dealer, you might love that car, but you hate that dealer, you're never going to buy it. And you may love a dealer over here, maybe that car is not really the one you want, but you may still go with that because you like it. And that's very true, I think, of demos. You go in there and they don't like you, game over. Jarrod, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, knowing the product is really key, certainly. The thing I would say is you got to know how to, and this takes practice over time, but knowing how to stitch the story together within the product. Because I think a lot of times what can happen is, yeah, you know the product, but when you go to build the story, you kind of get lost in some of the areas of setup, right? And trying to make sure all little areas are taken care of. Whereas really you want to focus in on like, what story am I telling? What areas do I need to get configured so that I can tell a story? And then, you know, being able to focus in and practice how I'm going to run through that story is really key. And telling it in a very, you know, meaningful way. That's to your point at the beginning. Like, it's not, hey, here's this feature and that feature, et cetera, right? It's what's the change, you know, for that particular use case.
Jarrod, I love that you said that you have to like keep yourself from implementing. I feel like a lot of new SE, and not just new, like a lot of SEs feel like the way they do well is by doing more, you know, and they end up just implementing an entire solution and getting super detail oriented. So I never really thought about it from an actual implementer's perspective. It's got to be even harder for you to fight that urge. So
yes,
yeah,
I think
I am guilty of that as well, Dave. Go ahead, LeeAnne.
Sometimes I think it's, and you know, Iman, when you were saying you got to be likable, like one of the things that popped into my mind was, you know, we've both sat on a lot of like SE interviews, for example, and like seen just a lot of demos. And sometimes it's more important what you don't show and what you don't say than what you do. So really examining, am I saying something and showing something because I need to, or because they need to see it? for every flavor of demo. And I think that's where sometimes you can, Jarrod, like to your point, you can kind of push the bar too far a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, quit while you're ahead. What do they need to see? Why are you sharing something? Are you like
to piggyback onto that, like, yes, and I demo defensively. I assume everybody in the room wants to pick every nit they can find. So if I'm showing you something, I'm expecting, so like, why is Stacy looking at me like, what? Stacy doesn't like what I'm presenting. You know what I mean? So like, if I present one more feature, she's going to call me out on it, or Johnny's going to call me out on it. And so like, if I'm putting it out there, I need to know why I'm putting it out there to make it worth the risk of it taking me down a rabbit hole. And so that defensive approach is kind of, I assume everybody wants the competitor. And so my goal is to get you nodding for whatever I present, whatever my presentation is. Here's a tip. I'll drop it right now. Whatever I'm presenting to you, whatever I do in my meeting, the first reaction I want you to have is to nod. I don't care what I'm talking about. I don't care what it is. I want you bought in before we start pushing back, whatever it is. So if we're here and we're talking about, I'm going to start with the problem. And I'm going to talk to you about the problem in a way that you agree about the problem. I want us to agree before we start disagreeing. You know what I mean? So that would be one tip. I'm just going to slide in there. Whatever you start with, better get the audience being like, yeah.
And that brings up a great point, because especially with this crew who tends to get in and be working on defense or federal, right? The great Microsoft teams, and everybody goes off camera and you're talking to 7 boxes, 20 boxes of no faces. And you're like, I mean, I will literally I'll pick a name and like, are you there? Like, and I will get a little rough and like, hey, you got to, your time is important. Like, and I don't mean us as your time is important as well, but this customer that you're talking to has put their time and energy into listening to you give something to them. They need to give you feedback so that you can get feedback and you get a loop going. Because when you are just talking to the boxes of darkness, you're just like, I don't know, do you like it? Do you not like it? And then you ask the question, hey, are you there? And then it takes like 15, 20 seconds for them to come off mute and say it. And you're like, well, you can put the sandwich down, at least like let me know you're alive. So let me ask this then. What strategies do you have, mentioning what you've just said, for balancing the technical depth with simplicity, right? Because you don't want to show, when you first come into it, you want to show every feature of Salesforce, the value. If I show you this tab, this object, this field, how do you limit the technical side of that to make it simplistic and also get the message across?
Jobs to be done. I mean, that's what we always come back to, is like, I had the opportunity once to watch Mark pick apart some of our demos. And it was a great learning opportunity, because truly he's the best product marketer in the world. And this is like 10 years ago, first TDX. And we had written a bunch of language. And I think it was when we were launching Lightning. And I was like, Lightning, when you could do calendar anything for Lightning. And we had so much language around it. And we're like, and if you connect this and custom objects and standard objects. And he was like, stop it. Don't say any of that. Say you can see everything that's important to you on the calendar. And it, I think like that kind of gets to it. Like, I think, what is the actual job to be done? Because I think particularly if you are technical, and I think if you're doing demos, you're likely technical, you have technical expertise, you know how things are working. It's like you have to pull yourself back from overly technical explanations and really shift, particularly in a pre-sale cycle where not everyone in the room no one in the room is probably as technical as you are in Salesforce, full stop. And so like, you really have to kind of take a step back and say, what are they trying to do? Like, what's that problem that they're trying to solve? And like, let's just really focus on that with our language and with our demo to find that balance. And then also, there might be people in the room, maybe your CTO's there, and you really do have to show some particular architecture elements, like, again, reading the room appropriately. But I think really focusing on that why, and we use the term jobs to be done quite a bit at Salesforce. And I think that that's something that I lean on really heavily, is like, what is the thing that they're trying to do? Like, let's explain like I'm 5. I want to see all my important things on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what, anytime, I would plan out a demonstration, what you're saying, LeeAnne, is exactly right. Like, who's the audience? Who am I presenting to? What's their knowledge of the platform? what are they looking to see? Because yes, primarily most of the time it's a non-technical audience, and sometimes you'll have those deep dives, and those are known. You can certainly lean more heavily towards diving into the technical side of things. How is this automation set up? But typically, yeah, like what from an audience perspective, what's the story need to be centered around, and how do I walk them through that new day in the life and that new process that I've built out within Salesforce in terms that they understand in a way that, they can relate to. I think that's where, I typically lean more towards that side versus talking, hey, this is a Salesforce flow that will allow you to do X, Y, Z. No, I'm going to leave that language out and go straight to, hey, this is a new process that will allow you to do everything you need to do in, 2 steps or whatever that may be. So yeah, that's huge.
And we'll get to that in a minute, mainly because I need to find the answer for myself, because I'll never know whether I should be doing a storyline, harbor tour, and some variation in between. And we'll talk about that for the rest of the crew. Johnny had a hand up.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed in my job and trying to create demos or prepare for something, a presentation, is ability to deploy quickly. And I was wondering if that's something that you guys see as well on your end, because you guys are doing solution engineering all the time. But I do implementations, and the ability to get to an MVP in, I do nonprofit cloud a lot. So getting to the point where I can start customizing it, but it's all set up in under an hour is a big deal, because instead of it taking 5-6 hours, if you can get it fully up running, you've got dashboards in there, you've got everything going, and all the permissions are ready to go in a short amount of time. How important is that as a solution engineer in solution engineering?
I'll let the crowd answer. I definitely have my opinions. I know Dave does as well.
I think it comes down to proving the thing that needs to be proven. You know what I mean? And what's the risk? What's the concern? What's the fear, right? So like in your case, you're talking to nonprofits. They don't have a lot of money, probably, and they are probably worried about getting it up and running. And so showing them that in one meeting, they can walk out with something up, that might be the proof point that you need, okay? But on the other end of the spectrum, my biggest deals, they don't care at all. You know why? Because they got so much money, they can throw it at people like Jarrod, and they know an army of other people are going to make it work, and they don't care at all. You know what I mean? If the project itself is going to be a 6-month implementation that I spend $1 million on, my goal is not to make Jarrod care about the speed of implementation. If Jarrod, the customer, says I care about the speed of implementation, and I'm not going to buy until you prove to me that I'm fearful and your competitor is better, and I'm not sure, ooh, and this is a problem. If you're not making it a problem, I'm not going to introduce it and make it part of my demo flow as a differentiator for no real reason.
Well, I guess, yes. I guess what I was getting at more so was along the lines of, if you're going to do a demo for a client and you want to customize it a little bit so that it's made for them.
Yes.
You have to get your demo org up to speed quickly.
Yes.
Without them there, so that you can jump into work. Yeah, like that kind of stuff. So that
For that, we have pre-built demo environments at Salesforce that we can create copies and clones of. And on top of that, we have additional tools built into them that let us quickly deploy things. So I can deploy CPQ and it's fully implemented with demo data ready to go. And I can, hit another button and move dates around. So that is something we care about, but it's less about showing it to the customer, and it's more about giving our SEs tools to be agile, to tell different stories very quickly, but they're an inch deep. You know what I mean? Like you poke 3 clicks down and I don't have a demo data for every case with every activity. You know what I mean? So we're really good at getting the facade stood up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say, Johnny, from a partner perspective, thanks. I'm assuming, Iman, thanks to some of your team's work, we have access to spin up those demo environments through the partner learning camp, which is super
Mhm.
helpful. So like for a client that, needs a nonprofit cloud demo, great. I can go spin up a base demo org that has the base of nonprofit cloud completely configured. And then to Amon's point, if I want to add stuff onto it, I can. Or, I know David put in the chat, like there's a lot of great things you can install from the App Exchange and otherwise to get some quick wins in there. To your question around speed, this is one thing I've tried to balance over the years because, and like Iman said this, like it's a bit of kind of feeling out the customer, because sometimes, yes, customers want demos very quickly. I think you have to be a little careful there sometimes because it can devalue a little bit the platform, right? And the effort it takes to get things configured, because while yes, I can turn on, nonprofit cloud right away, right? As we know, there's configuration that has to happen there to make it specific to you. So I think you have to balance that a bit of like, hey, yeah, I'm going to work in this timeline to get it set up. But, it's also not a flip of a switch to show you something that's going to be meaningful.
And I think we kind of hit on it too. What is the purpose of the demo? Is the demo just to prove, hey, you've talked about these automations. Can you show me a flow? Well, Dave and I have a library of demos that we pre-built for other customers. We just pop one open that I know has that feature and I can show that. All I'm trying to do is reduce that fear and uncertainty, show that the product will meet their needs and use case. And so a lot of times, if it's a real high dollar one and they're like, no, I need to see it do this, then that's what we're going to show. And it may be branded up for them. I may pull one from the Navy team and just run it off the Navy. Here's something we showed to the Navy, blah, 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 blah. And so it really is just what you need it to do. It's just a tool. And I think that was my whole point is don't ever think it's the be all end all. It doesn't have to be fully implemented. And another thing that is funny, maybe this is not good to say, but it's like how they film a cowboy shootout in a movie. The fronts of those houses are all you see. The back of them, there's nothing there. And we know a lot of times, like most SEs, just being nerds that we are, will overbuild the demo so it's fairly robust and you can go off script. There are other demos out there that you will say this thing and you will touch this thing and you will click that thing and that is it. Do not go anywhere else or things will start to blow up badly. And so you need to know beforehand what each one will do. Any other thoughts on that?
Now, I'll just throw out that there are different tools for different times. Like we have demo videos, right? For super top of the funnel where I don't even know who you are, but you need a good demo. Way better just send you a video. We've got like Figma style click-throughs. We've got this demo environment I shared in the link called the EDO. So that's a fully functional org that any of you can log into and features are just set up and they work. But like you're not the admin, you're an end user, So there's these different, I see it as like a spectrum of tools and you just kind of try to pick the right one for the right time. And the goal is to get through the sales cycle with a win, so whatever is easiest for the customer to consume, most likely to still lead to a closed deal, pick your choice.
Let's come back to that Figma. If we're gonna show behind the curtain, sometimes those demos you see out there, the big keynotes, they're not really Salesforce, they're really mock-ups of it. We know the product will do that. We know what is on the roadmap for the platform. LeeAnne's like, Dave, stop saying that.
No, I was just typing, except for never the admin or developer keynotes. We have never and will never use Figma in ours.
I like that.
That's a hard rule for us.
Yeah, and I know someone that does it over on the Slack side, Slack, right, where you have these interactions back and forth and you've got multiple people. Imagine running that demo and you have like 15 people somewhere in the background. You're like, I'm going to write Patricia now. I'm going to write Steve. That's not really realistic. So if you mock that out in Figma and just click through that it plays almost like a movie, that's an excellent way to show the functionality.
Yeah, and I think the general feel, just to share, like the general feeling behind it is, if it's something, there's things that we do have to hard code, like with Slack, like for other keynotes and stuff. And I think, but the philosophy is, as long as it's something that's for like production quality, more so than to like actually fake something that the product can't do is like the goal there. Now, main keynotes are more visionary for like things that are coming in the future. But when you're diving deeper into product like webinars and product keynotes. Ideally, the goal there is that it's always things that can really be done, but making them production ready so it can go on a broadcast to 10,000 people.
Yeah, and Amanda, to answer your question, did everyone see the back of those houses in your 90-minute demo? So for those joining late, I had a 90-minute demo. 90 minutes, Lord only knows where you're going to go on that script. And so we have generally a quiver of arrows that we like to use. And so that was one that kind of matched their use case from what I learned before. And this will go into Amir's question that I asked earlier. That's a fairly robust demo, and I know exactly what way I can go with it. And so when they're like, well, can you show us that? I'm like, all right, let's open up setup. And this can be a dangerous thing, like open up setup on the admin org and let's go in and config some stuff. If this is what it takes for you to understand the product to move forward in the conversation, then let's do it. So yeah, that was a fairly robust demo that I knew the capabilities of, and you just kind of go off script and go, okay, you want to see it? Let's roll. So Amir, you would ask, what are the questions to ask to help prepare for demo and get to know what customer wants to see? This is a good one. So this is the discovery process. Dave and I are so opposite on this. And so it's good. And I want to hear the rest of the panel. I'm like, I don't know, what do you want to see? Dave is very much more process driven and really kind of scripts out the things. So from the panel, how do you do it?
Go ahead, Jarrod. You go ahead.
Okay.
What's your secrets?
I'm probably more like Dave. I definitely try to.
You're both Dave.
Well, yes, that's true. I'm probably more on the scripted outside, but kind of in the middle, I guess. Whereas I will generally, script it out of like, here's where I want to start and here's how I want to progress through the demo and how I want to end. And then I do a lot of, dry running to get my talk track down. But at the same point in time, like I do ad lib throughout in getting a feel for how the customer is flowing through that demonstration. So a lot of it is like, I do like a little bit of structure, but I also like a little bit of leeway to pause at certain areas and say, hey, is there something else you'd like to see? Right. Any questions? But try to keep it a little bit on track.
And I think Amir was really looking at discovery. Like, what are your questions that you do for discovery? Do you have a pretty good scripted document that you use or template for Disco?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really, again, focused in on, what is that business problem you're trying to solve? What areas are you trying to look for improvement in? What do you need to see, right? From a product perspective. And then again, in some of those things will start to come out as you start to talk deeper on the business problem. So I keep it, somewhat structured at a high level perspective. And then I just use, I went through a sales training, it's been years ago, but around curiosity. And I just be curious, right? Like ask questions and don't be afraid to, as they answer what the business problem is, just say like, well, I'm curious, like, how do you do that today? Right. Those things will help you get the information you need.
I love discovery. It's like one of the things I miss the most about being an SE. I used to do mind maps, and like that was my favorite part of the sales cycle was doing discovery, because you get to be so nosy and you ask so many questions. And so some key points, often people will come to a discovery meeting like thinking they know the solution that they need. And they try to structure like the conversation around that. And they'll be like, well, really what we need is like, we need a field here that's going to track X. Like they'll kind of solution on their own and try to position that to you. And so I think like, think about how many times you want to ask why, and then ask why like 2 more times. Like keep asking like 5 whys, like keep asking why, because people will come to you with stuff in their mind that they think that that's what they want. But they're not the Salesforce expert. They might not know the capabilities of the platform. They might not know. I mean, there's a lot that they don't know. And so our job as credible advisors and as their partner is to like help understand the why behind the why, behind the why, behind the why. And so it's like, keep asking, because you might get to a really great nugget that you wouldn't have gotten to. Like they might be asking for a field on an object or something just very boring. And really what you want to get to is like, they have a VP of sales who wants to be able to check, reporting it like analytics and performance and incentives on their mobile device on the golf course on Sundays, or like some totally random tidbit, right? And so if you keep asking and keep diving in, I think like Jarrod said, that art of curiosity, get to that. Because I think good discovery is what breeds good demos. Like you have to spend so much time on that so you're answering the right questions.
Yeah, I'm kind of, these are all great answers. I'm kind of opinionated, so if you don't mind, I'd like to
Go for it.
So the discovery is the absolute single most important thing you need to focus on. More important than the demo by far. You mess up the discovery, the entire deal, everything you do is wrong. If you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know what the problem is, if you don't know who you're dealing with, everything you're going to do is either accidentally correct or wrong. You're wrong. So you need to actually treat the discovery as like the one time where you're going to get this map laid out in front of you. You know what I mean? And don't waste it doing the wrong thing. I see so many insecure SEs doing it the wrong way when they talk to customers. Hey, why don't you tell me exactly what I need to show you so that I did a good job? It's like, what? They don't work there. They don't know what the features are. They don't know what you're supposed to show them. I could not imagine like going to a doctor and being like, doctor, you need to explain to me exactly what part of my tendon. Like, I'm not going to tell the expert what they need to do to me. It's the wrong way to think about it. The wrong way to think about it. What you need to do is focus only on the problem and the goal. Don't even worry about the technology. They're not even experts in the technology. You're talking, what are you an expert in, right? Like, so Johnny, I don't know what you do, right? I don't know you at all, but like, you may not be a Salesforce expert, but you have a business, you have a problem, you got on this call for a reason. There's something you're trying to do. What is it? And so my job in a discovery is I pretend like I work at your company and I'm on your team. And my job is to be the employee that you explain this problem to so that I fully understand what is going on. And then I can walk out of the room and I can be your I can articulate what you're trying to do better than you can. You know what I mean? That's my goal. And then when I come out of there and I understand what you're trying to do, I, being a fantastic solution engineer, am going to come up with 1,000 things you never thought about. I'm going to blow. That's what melting faces is. I'm going to show up with the stuff you expected and then 9 things you didn't even know we could do. And then you know why that's better? You know why that's better? Because Microsoft didn't do it. HubSpot didn't do it. Oracle didn't do it. These 3 people showed up and showed you exactly what you told them to show you. They showed up and all looked the same because you told them the same things. Unlike me, I didn't ask you to tell me what to show you. I asked you to tell me about you and your situation, and then I invented what to show you. We are incomparable. So like it's not what the fact that you even asked what questions do you ask, you are thinking about this the wrong way. Wrong way. You go into that discovery and you're not allowed out of that discovery until you can tell me why they are willing to spend thousands of dollars and take risk on this problem. Can you explain that to me? Do you believe that they are willing to spend thousands of dollars on whatever this is? Because if they're not, and you don't understand why, showing them a feature is like showing the new thing to my mother-in-law. Hey, mother-in-law, they added this AI. What? Get it away from, she was not here. So like, don't think that showing people features and cool stuff wins deals. It don't when they don't care. Understand what they care about, be on their team, actually solve their problem. They will spend money and they will listen to you. I am a good SE because I'm on your team solving your problem.
I don't know what you're selling, but I'm buying it. I don't even care.
Yeah,
anymore.
ask the questions that get you to feel like this when you walk out.
I'm going to tell my wife, like, we're liquidating all the assets and we're buying whatever Iman's selling. I'm in. But there's one, you're speaking the spot on truth. And 2, there's another point that we're to come back to here right after we take the photo is the energy, right? When you used to watch Steve Jobs on the Apple things and they would bounce around and it would be a little bit false energy, like show this cool new thing. And you're like, dude, I need you to bring it down from 11 to like a 9. But that energy does sell, right? If you get on there and be like, I'm going to show you a couple things that you asked for, it's over. So anyway, we're past the midpoint of our session. Before I forget, let's get a group photo for sharing on social media. I usually have my mouth open, so feel free to keep this and I'll sign it if we ever run into each other. Important because we always want to be branding. We'll post it on LinkedIn and Twitter tomorrow, X as it's called. We'll tag everyone in the photo. If you only have your first name showing in Google Meet and want to be tagged, please feel free to include your full name in the chat window. We'll make it easier to tag you. And for everyone who wants to grab and participate in the photo, please unmute your video and we'll grab a screenshot. I'll try and close my stupid mouth. And please don't make any chats or anything, just so we can capture just the picture. In 3, 2, 1. Oh, please don't have my mouth open. Nope, it's open. Man, it's tough. Life is hard. Life is harder when you're dumb. So let us move on. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it. We're trying. Okay, so let's talk about that energy, right? Being positive in there, and it definitely makes a difference. And if the customers bring in energy to it, it feeds you, which feeds them, and it keeps going round and round. It's tough when you get some of those calls where it's a call, you know, nobody's on camera, and you're just like, I might as well talk to this wall over here. My dog would care more about the actual demo. But bringing the energy on that, you know, just like Iman's doing there, makes a huge difference. So what are our thoughts on that? How do we fight through when we're not in the mood? LeeAnne's like, I don't do it.
Well, I'm like thinking, because it's so different. Like, I think when you're in the room with people or on a Zoom with people, like if it's a small audience versus a large audience, like I think there's just different spaces to occupy, right? Like I know I had to really learn to bring energy when we started doing virtual events with COVID. Like when COVID started, because like I was used, when you're on a keynote stage or when you're like in a room with people, it's like, okay, I'm going to feed off your energy. Like I'm going to match your energy. I'm going to be jazzed. Like people are clapping, people are excited to be there. Keynotes are easy in this way because everyone like chose to be in that room and no one in there is like mad at you. Whereas like in a sales cycle, like you're like maybe half the room didn't want to be here today. And they're making that really clear in this SIC that like they don't want us and they're not picking us. So keynotes, I think, are frankly very easy to be high energy in because it's just like an room to be in. It's a friendly audience. But it was really hard to transition to virtual, which I think is probably kind of similar in some ways to like being on these Zooms where it's all blank screens. Because we transitioned like at the start of COVID, all of a sudden our TDX keynote changed to low code love. And we were all going to be talking to a camera and trying to bring keynote energy when you don't see anybody. And so I know this sounds crazy, but part of it was I used a lot of visualization. But for this, like you're because I was like, I'm just going to pretend like there's people here. And I'm going to, so that was, I mean, and this might not be appropriate for like a sales cycle, but like I know for that, it helped a lot. Like I was like, I'm just going to imagine that people are stoked about this and I want to get them stoked about it. So really like leaning into kind of like, I mean, honestly, fake it till you make it does work in life. And like, so I think sometimes you can fake it till you make it and say, look, I'm just going to be high energy and I'm going to bring people up. I think in a sales cycle, that's a little different because if you're like not on the same, like you probably have good feedback here, but like if you're not on the same level as the people in the room, it can feel really disingenuous. So I know like when I was in a lot of sales cycles, I would try to be a couple beats up from them, but like bring them up with me, if that makes sense. Like coming in hot, like in a totally different space than they were at. But I don't know, Iman, what's your strategy to bring people up?
I don't, so this is going to sound like it shouldn't come from me, but it's not about energy. It's about engagement, attention. It's about attention management.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out why they're not paying attention. Like my style definitely is a turnoff to a lot of people. I have demographics of people that do not like me as a presentation style, and that's okay. I speak too fast for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If English isn't your first language, I can make you uncomfortable with how I speak. If you're from the South, you tend to think I speak faster than if you're from the city. Like people from the city never say anything. People from the South always tell me I talk fast. Like I can just be the wrong presenter style. What you got to do is think about the audience I'm presenting to. What do they respond to? And it could be mirroring, but it's more about giving them what they want. And so when they're not engaged, I'm trying to figure out why aren't they engaged? Are they bored? If they're bored, I got to pivot. Am I on the wrong thing? Do they not like it? Are they just checking email? Because if they've checked out, then me continuing is a waste of time and effort. In fact, I'm not helping the sales cycle at all. You know what I mean? I got to stop and I got to bring it back. You know, like if all of you just went silent and I just keep going and no one's on the meeting anymore, like, did I do I'm not sure I did a good job, you know? So like what I try to do, and this is really kind of my advice for all these situations is be a person, be a real person. Don't worry about your employee title. Don't worry about their title. Be a person talking to another person. You know what I mean? Like if I went to a barbecue and I met one of the Davids and they were telling me about a business problem they had and I could solve it, I would talk to them in a more natural conversational way that feels like me talking to them, that they would talk back to me. And there would be I would not be at a barbecue with David and be like, why did he just walk away from me like that? Is he listening to me? Because we're actually talking like people engaged. You know what I mean? What's weird is when this happens. Hello, everybody. My name is Iman Maghroori, and when you get all weird and scripted and you go into this path where you're basically giving the audience the permission to not treat you like a normal person because you ain't acting like a normal person. You're acting like somebody that showed up to a meeting pretending to be somebody you're not. So what I would say is, what would you do if the person on the other end of that line was a family friend? I'm not saying curse. I'm not saying be like crass or casual, but like, what if you had a little bit of a personal relationship with them? How would you get them to like look you in the eye? Whatever that is, you probably would do that in the meeting. That'd probably work better. You know, doing I'm going to ask a work question now. Johnny, what are your thoughts on this? Any questions? When has that ever happened? When have you ever been sitting there and your friend tuned out and you're like, David, any questions? Like, that's not even re-engage people in the real world, you know? So like, don't try whatever these tactics are. Be a person, talk to another person, and get them to look you back in the eye. That's it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think this is where what I like to say is, you know, from a demo perspective, when you're prepping and when you're delivering the demo, all of these things, they connect to each other, right? Like like you said earlier, Iman, like the discovery is so key and is really the most important piece because of what you just talked about, right? If you do discovery really well and you connect with your audience ahead of time really well, you're going to be able to easily weave in those areas as you're speaking in the demo, right? You can, as you're, demoing that solution, you can say, yeah, here, Johnny, this is exactly what we were talking about in that process area, right? And look at how we're going to improve this, right? You can weave some of that in very naturally, to your point, to get some engagement, or just, if people are off camera, right, maybe wake them up, whatever that may be. But I think that is so key, building the relationship and the connection ahead of time, so that you can make that more conversational in the demo. And then from an energy perspective, yeah, I think it's certainly a balance, but what I always used to tell, my team and what I've always tried to do is, don't be afraid to show your personality and your excitement for the solution you're demonstrating, and the change that it's going to bring. Like, people feed off of that, and people see that, and I think that really helps drive home a lot of the value. I think sometimes you can overthink it a bit and say, well, I don't want to come over the top here, or be too crazy. You do, I think, don't be afraid to show that personality. Certainly.
Amir, I see your question. Go ahead, LeeAnne.
I was just gonna say, to double down something that Iman said about being able to stop being scripted. I think earlier in the call, I shared, it's really important to think about why you're saying everything you're saying. And is it because you need to say it? Is it on your script? Is it on your bullet points? Am I because I think we've all been in meetings, whether it's a demo meeting or any type of meeting, where people are not hearing what's happening on the meeting. And they're kind of I was just on a meeting like this a week ago. It was with senior leadership at Salesforce. And we had this whole presentation and we got senior leader feedback. And it was difficult, I think, for some people on the meeting to pivot in the middle of the meeting. So they're like, okay, I'm still going to present this same slide the same way, even though we just got this earth shattering feedback that totally changes everything. And I think it's again, whatever you're saying, it's why are you saying it? Is it on your script? Be willing to throw the script away and really stop. And Iman's saying is be a person and listen, what is happening in the meeting? What's going on with the people on this meeting that they're engaging or they're not engaging, or they're asking these questions, what's the why behind the why? And just be willing to throw it all away, I think, and really respond and be present in that moment, instead of I planned to show these 7 things. I must show them no matter what.
And we're
Even
only
if-
on 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to yes and that, LeeAnne. The one thing I will say clearly is if you can feel that they're actively like disengaged, they're actively letting you like die on the vine, stop. Don't finish the demo. You're being set up to fail. Don't finish the demo. Here, I've been in this situation. Here's what will happen. You'll finish the demo. They didn't care. They didn't listen. They didn't care. And at the end of it, they just go, we saw the demo, not for us. We saw the demo, didn't like it. Saw the demo, insert response that lets them blow you off. And you have nothing to say to come back. But instead, if you go, whoa, I'm sorry, I am way out in left field over here. The presentation I brought is obviously not the right one for you guys. Let's just pivot. What is it that would, and then just start making a conversation and then come back and do you were going to lose that deal. You're going to lose that deal if you finish that demo. Don't lose the deal. Stop and then try again. And you know what they can't say? They cannot end that meeting where you pulled the ripcord and go, we saw the demo. They can't say that. So they can't put you in the trash bin. So if you feel like you are actively being put to the side and they're actively doing this thing where they're not engaging with you, don't let them check the box that they got your demo. Stop. It'll make people uncomfortable, but you get another meeting or two and at least you might win the deal, or at least decide it ain't for you.
Yeah, I mean, for all my Army veterans on here, Marines, right? The old saying of fight the enemy and not the plan, right? If you have this well-written plan and you go out there and the enemy's not there, shift, because it's just going to go poorly. And it's the same thing, right? And so I think Dave and I we're always yin and yang and how we operate. I personally, I don't even write scripts, maybe because I'm lazy, but I have an idea where I want to go. I know where I want to go, what I want to show, but I don't do well on a script because as soon as someone asks me a question off that script, everything starts to crumble and I usually don't recover well. Yeah, exactly, Dave. Everyone has a demo plan until you get punched in the face. Good old Mike Tyson. Amer has a question. Sometimes in demos, you get excited that you want to jump directly to solutioning before the customer finishes his sentence. How to handle this?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, bro. That's me.
You're supposed to say you don't do that because
I interrupted for you on this call. That's my kryptonite. Yeah, don't even.
But that's different from
someone else.
Seeing a solution in your head, right? A lot of times you'll solution way too early and be like, oh, I know exactly how this is going to go. And the next thing you know, you're way off because you haven't really done a proper discovery or you really didn't let them finish the statement, really let them talk. LeeAnne, I see you shaking your head.
I think forcing yourself to ask more whys. I mean, I know it sounds corny, but like, I think forcing yourself to get to like, why does any of this matter? Right? Like if you can't answer that.
Very existential, yeah.
Existential demo crisis. But like, why does it matter? This thing that we're building and this thing that we're talking about, like it's kind of the what's keeping you up at night question. Like that's always my favorite question that people ask senior leaders and stuff. It's like, what's keeping you up at night? Like really, what is that thing? Exactly, Amanda. I think getting to that to me helps because I've done the opposite. I've solutioned too early and I've built something that like I thought was cool, but like then we kind of missed an opportunity to better understand what problem we were solving. And we kind of let the customer too much into the solution process and built something they were asking for, but it wasn't maybe really what they needed. And so maybe we missed an opportunity to like add more products on that, like actually, hey, there's these opportunities for other things that they don't really know they need yet. Like they're not experts in our products. They don't know. And so I think asking why to me always helped kind of understand what's the point of this tool that we're building anyways.
Iman brought up a point really about not getting the good discovery. The discovery is critical, and I probably suck at it if I'm admitting the truth. But when you go down discovery too quickly and you don't do good discovery, you might make it through the demo, but the quote is probably all screwed up, right? Because you don't know what they really need down the road. Yeah, you made it through the demo and they're still listening to you, but the next thing you're like, well, what are we doing for pricing? And you're like, well, I think you need this, but I really don't know how many users you have, how many personas, roles, and all that stuff. So
yeah, be curious, be nosy, like flip over as many rocks as you can. Because I mean, it's like truly, you don't know. Like people come to a meeting and they're like, I have this on my list to talk to these Salesforce people about, and here's what's on the list to talk to them about, which is great. Like we want to make sure we get that aired out and like we talk about it. but like flip over more rocks, like, because you just don't know, what else is troubling them, what's troubling their boss, what's making it hard for them to do their job or hard for their business to be successful.
Well, a lot of times that is from their perspective and is straight digital translation. How many times have you gotten I need it to look exactly like my SharePoint? And you're like, really? You're going to spend this kind of money in implementation to do exactly what that looks like? Why are we doing anything at all? Why don't we start getting to what is the root of the root cause here, and get to like maybe a digital transformation?
One trick that I like to use, because as much as I like to say, do a great discovery, that's idealistic. There are a lot of times people are like, I just want to see it. I don't know what you're talking about.
For sure.
They need to see some stuff. So a trick that I have, and it kind of gets to the solutioning early problem too, is I do a disco demo. All the time.
I just did. That was what the 90 minutes was. Same thing.
And
I'm going to show something else and see what I can tease out.
Yeah. And my favorite is to set the expectation of, I didn't prep this. This isn't for you. This is just an example. What do you think about something like this? And then they're like, ooh, I like it. Ooh, I don't. And so if I'm going to solution early, or if I'm going to do a discovery where they're a little challenging, I'll do that disco demo where I pop it open. I'm clear about the fact that this is a rough draft. I didn't spend any time on it. If they beat it up, I'm like, oh yeah, we could show you that next time. So it gives me a lot of outs without being too locked into, you got the perfect demo, and then I can use that to be like, well, what should be different? What did you like? What don't you like? And that alone, once they start talking, that goes away and it just becomes a visual aid for the conversation again. So if you find that you solution early, bring it up in the discovery as a what if, not I've got it, this is it. It's like from what I'm hearing you say, it's like something like this. Does that feel right? Let them kind of like coalesce the idea with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Trick that I forgot that I used to do until just now when you asked about recording, I used to share my screen for my discovery notes.
Oh yeah.
So I would build maps during discovery and I would share my screen, because people love to nitpick and they love to be like, oh, you're missing this thing. You're missing this thing. And it like gets people out of sometimes that defensive posture of like, oh, this person's asking me questions, but it's like not something I want to talk about. And instead they're like, oh, this is cool. I'm seeing my things and my words and my business reflected on screen. And I felt like I got so much good deets from sharing my screen and making it a collaborative process, that it got people out of that little bit of a defensive posture that sometimes happens on discos.
And to go on to that too, LeeAnne, what I like is like customers see your notes and they see you taking down what they're saying and not some secret hidden note that's like against them somehow. Like when AEs hide their notes, the sales rep hides it. It's almost like, what are you writing down there? You're gonna hurt me with that later, But when they see me writing down, like there are 12 of you and you don't like whatever it is, it's a little bit more we're on the same team working together.
Yeah, we're documenting your business together and talking about it together to solve problems together.
Yeah.
And Dave brings it up on there too, the mind maps, like do the mind map together. Okay, so talk to me about your personas. How many people? What integrations do you have? And kind of work through that stuff. I think as I've gone on the journey through becoming an architect, that definitely helped, right? Learning how to ask those questions. What integrations do you have out there? What's your data strategy that you're going to plan on bringing over there? And the other thing, along with the video of it, is asking for assets of it, right? Do you have a lucid chart of your business process? When you can get that stuff, it's like pure gold. Because then you're just grabbing that in and you start taking it. And that's how I've done a lot of my more successful demos, is getting them to give as much information. And when they buy into that and they start throwing that stuff to the point where you're like, I can't take all this. There's only one of me. It's going to take me like 4 months to go through it all. Then you've got the trove of, then you got to hope you get the right stuff. So what are we at here? We're at 59. How about we wrap it up with a real quick final question, like we have any quick questions. What is the most impactful advice you would give to someone aspiring to build a career as a demo specialist? This is actually really for me. I probably need this. What strategies or mindsets do you think will be essential for success in this field? Go ahead, LeeAnne. I know you're not hiring me, so let's move. Like you can say whatever you want.
I think to build the muscle, like I'm of the opinion that like at Salesforce, the best demos come from people who had a lot of at-bats as like small biz sales engineers. Like I think build a lot of demos, share them, put yourself open to brutal feedback, do it a lot, do it often, do it quickly, iterate quickly, don't be afraid. I think that's like for just truly the muscle of like, how do I build a story? How do I tell a story? How do I share something? Like record a demo, like sit down and say, hey, I built this flow and I think it's cool. I'm going to try to practice recording it and talking about it and share it with your trusted network, share it with your friends, share it on your LinkedIn, share it somewhere. And I think just getting those at bats and failing, being willing to kind of fail quickly and iterate quickly, to me, I think is one of the things in life, not just in demos, but like, just do it. Like, it's not an overly intellectual exercise that to sit around and like, okay, what am I going to do about this? And I have to architect everything and have this whole plan. Like, find a point solution that you built, like find one thing that you built and say, I'm just going to record it. I'm going to build it. I'm going to share it. And it's maybe going to suck. And then I'm going to make it better. And I'm going to do it again.
Not intellectual, but highly emotional. Like recording yourself and watching it is one of the worst things. Like I literally think people would get me to talk and spill my guts if they're like, I'll make you watch yourself again. You're like, I'm out, man. I'll give you anything you want. Iman, any thoughts?
Lee, again, man, I agree with everything LeeAnne said, +1. I think you just
Weird.
have to
She's been here for so many years.
It was spot on. I agree. You can't rush. This is a skill. You cannot just magically become good at it overnight. You can tell me everything you want about hitting a baseball. I'm not going to be a home run hitter without going to the batting cages and hitting like 1,000 balls, So you're just going to have to be in a lot of meetings and suck for a while before you get good. The other thing I would say is let go of the dogma. Let go of the way you think you should present. Don't do it my way. Don't do it LeeAnne's way. Don't do it David's way. Everyone's got their own style. You've got your own way of communicating and telling stories to your friends. So I would say follow what seems to work for you. Don't trust other people giving you good advice. You stare at the audience and see when they're engaged, see when they tune out, and just try to follow the thing that gets you more success. And you're going to find in 5 years from now, you've got your own style that works.
Yeah, spot on. Jarrod?
Yeah, I mean, they nailed it. I mean, that's what I was gonna say is, I think of the old Allen Iverson deal about practice. Like we're talking about practice, not a game, but it's true. Like the practice thing is so key here because it really is a skill that you build up. And to reiterate, like I love what you just said, Iman. Like you're gonna run across great people who give awesome demos and you're going to want to try to imitate them. You'd learn things from them, but don't imitate them. Find your own way. And the practice piece is really key. And what I always say is like, find, a handful of trusted people where you can record yourself and you can give it to them, let them watch it. You can demo it for them live. Allow them to give you that candid feedback on where you can improve. Like that practice piece is so huge. It's going to help you improve tenfold in how you deliver your demos. And then you're going to find your style over time. Like as you practice, you're going to find that style that works well for you. So you've got to be vulnerable. It's key to getting better. It is uncomfortable, but you will learn a lot and you will grow and be better for it.
Like I've said so many times on here, the shower is perfect because no one knows if you're crying in the shower. So you can take that feedback and just go in there. And just,
I didn't think we were going to end it on a cry.
Let it all out.
That works, man. That works.
So before we close, I'd like to thank Iman, LeeAnne, Jarrod for co-hosting tonight's session and letting me know how horrible I am as an SE and that I need to go back to the military. It's been awesome having you here and getting your feedback, your perspective on the topics, the energy. Really appreciate all your time here. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great to be on.
Thanks, everyone.
I'd heard about you, Iman. I heard about you from some of my colleagues at work. They're like, this guy Iman, you got to go watch his stuff. And then I sit down. I'm like, oh, this is Iman.
All right. Okay. Well, I hope
they missed your videos, so they loved it when you were doing them like all the time. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was nice. Thank you. Tell them it was great, no matter how you really thought about it.
Yeah, it was wonderful. With that,
everybody.
Thank you so much for attending, everyone. Hope to see everyone in future events and have a great Wednesday night.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe. Good, David. Bye.
Appreciate it.